250 postcards was my base. And that 250 postcards is what led me to get that first assignment. So under $200 in my first 30 days brought me an $8,500 assignment fee.
The DealMachine REI podcast. Everything you need to know to get started in real estate investing.
So what would you say on average you spend on direct mail per deal?
I mean, I think our all in on every deal is probably around that $250 to $300.
No way, dude. No way. Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're still generating all of our leads through. Deal. I could send you my call rail results from the week. Every lead that we are getting is brought to us either by postcards, by our relationship with the city officials. I'm not paying big money for anything. I'm not paying. Now I send a ton of postcards. It's not 250 postcards anymore. I think my marketing budget was like $6,000 last month, but I'm bringing $90,000 to $100,000 in a month off of what I'm spending in marketing.
That's amazing. Have you celebrated doing that $1 million mark, right? Because that's what $90,000 to $100,000 a month is $1 million.
The celebration was my bookkeeper said, "Hey, welcome to the $1 million club," and I was like, "Sweet," and then I moved on.
All right, at least they acknowledged it.
Yeah, they did.
I remember when I hit
the
that
$1 million club.
Nobody acknowledged me, and I just felt like I really wanted to be acknowledged. So you got a good bookkeeper there. So. Wow.
It didn't feel like, I would say, like it was a real big push because I wanted to hit that $1 million mark. And I knew we were close, but I had already given up in November. I'm like, we're not going to be able to hit it. And then we did. We had a big month and pushed it all the way across.
A huge advantage of driving for dollars, looking for distressed properties, is because of the low cost. It's a list that's not easy to get because it takes your time to drive around or somebody else on your team's time to drive around. And you create this list of distressed properties that nobody else has. Yep. Now, if you grab the water shutoff list, everybody might be grabbing that. It's easy to get. And so you spend more money on mail to reach owners to find somebody that wants to do a deal. So you've been able to scale your business quite nicely by using driving for dollars, which is amazing that you're spending $6,000 a month on marketing in order to bring in assignment fees worth of $90,000.
Yep.
That's truly amazing.
Yeah. And that's what keeps you going, man. When you do stuff like that, for me, I'm driven by that. The thrill of the sale is what motivates me.
The one thing that I was curious about is why did you pick direct mail rather than cold calling or door knocking or any of those other strategies?
Well, I wish I had a really cool story behind that, but it was literally because that was what was on the 30-day wholesaling challenge. You're going to go and drive for dollars. Now, cold calling came in later. Cold calling came in when we were looking for buyers, and even taking those deals that you added driving for dollars and cold calling them, that came in later in the program. So I would still say cold calling was a part, and we still cold call now, but it is not nearly as effective as postcards. Postcards are just are the golden nugget for our business, and I don't really care to change that. I'm going to keep doing that until it is no longer effective. I'm going to continue to do direct mail. It still works really well.
A huge reason that I like direct mail is because cold calling doesn't give me energy. And I've never heard anyone talk about this, but I've always felt it, is that cold calling, it does require you to get out of your comfort zone. And I'm not somebody that likes to be told no. Mm-hmm. That's just a plain fact about me. And when you're cold calling, you get a lot of no's. But when you send direct mail, people who call you back are typically people who are interested. You may get the occasional take me off your list, but most people, if they're thinking no, they're just not going to call you. And that just is something amazing for me. It frees up my energy to be thinking about analyzing deals and other things. And so that's why I personally like direct mails, because all I have to do is drive around, press a button, know that that's sent out and it's going to auto repeat, and then take the calls from whoever calls me back.
You know what else is something that we practice as a team is when we're out driving for dollars, sometimes there's deals that I'm just like, I want to call them right now. I'm sitting in front of their house.
Well, that's
I
good. That
see
means
it.
you have energy.
Right. So
Yeah.
we will sit there and we'll skip trace it. I'll find this house, skip trace it, call it. Sometimes they answer and I'm like, hey, I'm sitting in front of a house at 123 Main Street. Is this your property? Yes. Are you interested in selling it? I'm buying properties in this neighborhood. Dude, that has worked. That has worked so many times that I'm like, I've always kind of felt like there's an algorithm hidden in DealMachine that knows that you're parked in front of them and gives you better results skip tracing. Because I'm like, this works so many times.
You'll never know.
Yes, I'll
And for
never
those who
know.
don't know, skip tracing means you're just getting the owner's phone number. And so you can call them. And it comes with their email as well. It's a term that came from court. When you would skip your court date back in the day, a private investigator would go figure out where did that skipper go? And they would do research to find their phone number, email, and track them down. So that's where the term skip tracing comes from. And Ryan, I just loved hearing your story about calling right in front, but I know your business is primarily focused using direct mail. So let's dive into it.
Okay, so direct mail is the act of sending mail directly to an individual.
Perfect. So if you've sent a letter to your grandma,
right, that's direct mail. Yeah.
So in the context of real estate investing, tell me about that.
So direct mail in real estate investing is sending a piece of mail directly to a homeowner or to a property that basically introduces yourself and what idea you're presenting. And for us, and for probably most people, it's the idea of selling their home. So direct mail in this case would be a postcard or a letter that says, hey, would you be interested in selling your home?
Why don't you turn so the camera can see
like,
that?
Hey, I want to buy your house. So,
and what else is important to show on your direct mail piece? I think it's on the back of your shirt.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, turn. You got to do a 360. A little bit further. A little bit further. There you go. Lean that way.
I think my back popped.
It says call me 816-759-2009. Is that your cell phone?
Yeah. No.
It's your line that people could call to get a deal.
Yeah, and
or to get to sell their house.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to sell their house, or sometimes people just read the call me and they call.
Yeah.
Which is, you don't know what you're going to get. Yesterday, was that today or yesterday? We were in the elevator and my shirt says, I buy houses. And a guy was like, you want to buy my house?
Oh yeah, that was today in the service elevator.
Yeah, that was cool. So if you wear shirts and stuff like that, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But going back to direct mail, I don't even know where we left off.
We talked about direct mail.
The message.
Yeah, is just sending anything through the mail to a person. And then in the context of real estate investing, we talked about your direct mail piece is probably going to say, hey, if you're interested in selling your house, I'd love to give you a cash offer.
Right.
Give me a call or text.
Yeah.
And one thing that's pretty nice to include is the option to call or text, because some people may prefer to talk.
Yeah.
And they don't have a cell phone, or they're not comfortable
really
texting.
It's really dependent on demographic too.
Or maybe some people don't want to talk.
Right.
And they would prefer to text.
Yep.
And by giving them the option, then you can be sure they can contact you however they want to contact you.
Easiest way of communication, whatever's easy for them. It could even be email. I mean, we still put our email address on every piece.
And email is also a good option to throw on there as an option. Maybe also a website.
Fax number.
Now that's a joke, but the website wasn't a joke.
Okay. All right. You're picking up jokes. That's good.
What else could you put on a postcard?
You could put a picture of their property. In the event that maybe they don't know, maybe they own multiple houses. And being able to see specifically what property you're referencing is a good piece.
Yeah. Now, whenever I first started out, picture's a really good thing.
Yep.
When I first started out, I read this blog. I had never sent any direct mail, but I knew I was going to look for rundown houses, and I wanted to get in touch with the owners via direct mail. I read this blog on Bigger Pockets, and it said that putting a photo of the house that you take with your smartphone would actually get a higher response rate. This person had published this article, and they had shown some math. And so from the very beginning, I was like, well, I'm doing all this effort to find these houses. Why don't I do the most that I can do to go ahead and, get them to open the letter? So I was taking photos and I was writing down addresses, and I was feeling very excited until I sat down and I went backwards and tried to put those together. I felt very frustrated.
Oh yeah.
Because somehow I had not the same number of photos as I did with the addresses. And that was actually a challenge. So not executed well, but I think a good idea is to have the photo.
Well, and even for the people that like to do, it's not been my cup of tea, but I've heard other people that'll go out and get, they'll drive around and they'll identify 10 properties, and they'll literally handwrite a letter to each. I've never done that, but I know that there's some people that do that, and it's wildly successful.
Yes.
But again, direct mail, which is still very alive and well.
It's never been dead.
It's never been dead. No.
And it probably won't die.
I don't think so. I can go back into other industries that I've worked, and direct mail was effective there as well.
Yeah.
Like selling fiber internet, sending that information to those people. The number of people that would reply from that piece of mail was better than any other marketing avenue. So yeah, I knew it was good then. I know it's good now, because just about 70% of our marketing is all direct mail.
Right. There's no regulations on what you can send. There is no regulations or spam filters.
Right.
Other than the people who are opening their own mailboxes and maybe throwing things away before they open it.
Sure.
But then that's an opportunity for you to stand out in that regard.
Yep. There's many ways you can do that.
And the post office is very reliable.
Yep.
It is very reliable, and it does not have a text messaging filter like some of the carriers do. There's, email spam filters that might block outreach that way.
Right.
And one thing that I love about direct mail is that it takes no time.
Yeah.
If you're using a system, unlike me, to actually put the picture with the address and print the mail and get it sent out. But assuming that you're using a company to do that, it actually takes no time, which is amazing, because the simpler things are, the more likely you are to do them.
Yep. And I like the idea, like I've seen it, even most recently, people say, don't spray and pray. Is that what it's like the idea of sending out a bunch of mail and just wait. And I'm like, but it's so easy. And honestly, if you go out and you identify which properties that you see as distressed, like I do in my market, I look around in every neighborhood and I see the distressed houses. To me, it's not just throwing mail out the window and hoping something sticks. I genuinely want each of those properties to call me back.
Yeah, you're not marketing to everyone in St. Joe. You've actually selected that house for a reason.
Yeah. Now I market to a lot of people, and I send out a lot of mail, but each of my mail pieces, it's not like, it's very calculated. The way that we go out and identify the properties that we do direct mail, it's very calculated. We look for specific things, whether that's whatever level of distress, which for us, it's over the course of 3 years, it's changed, because it used to just be broken windows, boarded up windows. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many of those.
Yeah.
Once you start, like for us, we've cleaned up so much of our own town. There's still some of those that are boarded up, and I've mailed them a dozen times, and I'm still like, you won't get response out of some of them. But go ahead.
We actually did a little research at DealMachine.
Okay.
That if you only send one piece of direct mail, you're missing out on over 85% of your potential deals.
Yeah.
Because when we surveyed our members and how many postcards, deals that they had done, how many postcards or letters did that seller receive?
Right.
Some do respond on the first postcard, but based on our survey, you're missing out on 85%.
Yeah,
if you only stop after sending one piece of mail to a house that you're interested in.
I can back that up. We used to, when we first started, I was only doing one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I did that. I think it was more or less just to see if it was working.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of time, I have seen sending, and how I know, I'll get a phone call and they'll be like, I've gotten like 5 postcards from you. And I'm like, yes. Maybe it's what it takes, is seeing a piece of mail coming to them 5 times with either the same or a different message.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets their attention.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they'll call you.
Yeah. Well, here's one way I like to think about it is if you're, you might be buying a list. I'm not sure how you've selected all your properties. Would love to hear that. But if you're doing a driving for dollars list, which means you're driving around looking for these rundown houses that physically look rundown, that has grass growing too tall or paint peeling off or whatever, that house has looked run down for quite a while.
Yeah.
And they didn't sell it before.
Right.
So just because they get a postcard from you one time means they're probably not going to sell it
that one postcard
on the first
may not
time.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But now it becomes a timing thing.
Right.
Something may happen where they do need to sell it. Maybe a tree falls on the house. And,
regularity, even in.
So you got to hit them up, make sure you're on the table when they do want to sell. And it's worth it to continue to be on the table because the house is run down. It's just a matter of time when they will need to sell it.
Yep. Yeah. Staying on, like once you've added it and you've identified it as a lead, keeping it as a lead until they tell you no, it's a lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be part of your regular marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
For us, like all of those, every lead that we have added that's not absolutely said, don't call me again, I'm not interested, is still in my lead list. So every deal that we've ever added is still there until they specifically say, no, I'm not interested, or they say, yes, I want to sell the house. It stays there and we'll market it every so often. Over the course of time, what we have identified as distress changes because you start seeing different symptoms, and you can actually find a symptom of distress early. The more you do it, you start seeing, okay, before it gets to 12-foot tall grass, you start seeing 6-foot tall grass.
Mm-hmm.
Before you see 6-foot tall grass, you see 1-foot tall grass.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, you're just like, they haven't mowed their yard for a few weeks. And I'll go around and I'll pick out all the ones that it's like, you haven't mowed. It's definitely either you're on vacation or something's happening and you're not paying attention to this house.
Yeah.
So like that's a symptom. Stuffed mailboxes is the same way. I mean, you could drive by in a house with the mailbox on the front. If there's a bunch of mail in it, that tells me there's nobody there. They're not checking the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your risk is I'm going to add to that pile, but eventually somebody might come by and pick that up. And what are they going to see in their mailbox? 5, 6 postcards with my name on them.
That happened to me with one deal that I did where the person actually passed away and their son came to the house to kind of clean it out. And he saw a bunch of my postcards and he called me because he's like, I have to settle debts with their estate within the next 30 days.
Dude, get this. So this is I like telling stories, and this one just fits perfect. So in our this is probably year 2 of wholesaling real estate. It was January and a lady had called and I had went and did driving for dollars in a very high-end neighborhood, like total Hail Mary. I'm like, I'm just going to go drive around and see. But these are like $350,000-$400,000 houses. And in our market, that's big.
That's big.
That's
big in
market.
Indianapolis, wherever I was from.
Yeah. So I went and I drove around and I sent postcards. And then I got a call from one of the postcards, an elderly woman. She's like, I am interested in selling the house. I don't live there anymore. And we need to do it. And I said, okay. And this was right before pandemic was really getting to be a problem. And so I told her, I said, call me. She had some doctor's appointments she needed to go and take care of. I said, call me when you're done with that. I'll meet you at the house. All of a sudden it was crickets. There was I didn't get a call, didn't get anything. Probably 2 months passed. It was March. And I got a random call. Hey, this is so-and-so over at my mom's house. She passed away a few weeks ago, and your postcard was on her refrigerator. And so she had some notes written on the conversation that you guys had, and I wanted to follow up with you. And so I'm like, absolutely. I went and met them, walked through the property, and made my offer. They accepted the offer, and I wholesaled that. That was like, at that time, that was my first big assignment fee. Like, I made $20,000 on that one deal. And it was from one postcard that she had taken out of her mail. And granted, she didn't live there. So she had set that piece of postcard aside on her refrigerator, and then her kids found it and they called me. Like, just the way that all that stuff works, it's like, that is so, you don't know who's going to find it, how it's going to be found.
Yes.
But it's coming.
I remember that first deal that I did from a piece of direct mail that was direct to the seller, meaning this was not a house that was listed for sale. He just responded to my postcard. I remember seeing my postcard there on his counter. And that was just such an amazing feeling, because I'd been sending a lot of postcards, but to see the one that actually gave me the deal.
Yeah.
I wish I would have framed it.
When I see that, like I met with a guy a couple weeks ago who had 9 houses, and I went and met with him, and there sat my postcards on his desk. He's like, do you want these back? I'm like, no, you can have it. But I took a picture because I'm like, it's cool to see it. Like, from my side, I'm sending them.
Yeah.
He's receiving them, and I'm seeing that whole process play out right there in that negotiation.
Yeah.
So it's so much fun to see when you get a lead from that postcard. It's gratifying, and it's always fun to see it.
Yes.
So yeah, to me, I think I've always been very big on advocating for direct mail, because it's been so good for us. That to me, I'm like, that's a good place to get started, especially if you're working a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 job. It's a very passive way of doing it, because you're sending out mail with your contact information, and really then it's on them to call you. So you're sending it out, and as long as you're going and identifying properties that you actually see distress in, and not just pulling a list for the entire city and mail everything out. I mean, I've done that too, and you'll get phone calls, but it's almost overwhelming. If you identify your specific, what you're looking for, you can go out in an evening, you can go out on Saturday, on Sunday, or your day off. You can add enough properties, distressed properties, and start mailing those properties, and then go about your business until you get the phone call. And you can easily do that in your time off, or in between shifts, or on your days off, versus having to just sit in front of a computer and cold calling every single day, or sending out massive texts every single day and having to go through that. I mean, that is a process. That's an 8 to 5 job in and of itself, is sitting and calling number after number after number.
You know, I just thought of a millionaire direct mail tip.
I'm all in. Let's go.
So one thing I noticed was, on my cell phone, I get so many spam calls these days.
Yep.
I get so many spam texts. I get so many spam calls, like 10 per day at least.
Oh, yeah.
There's a setting on my phone that turns off the ringer for unknown callers, which is amazing. It's a lifesaver.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'd be
All
checking
day.
my phone.
Yeah.
Right. Like more than I normally do.
Right.
And I wouldn't get anything done. So if you're going to put a phone number on your direct mail, you probably don't want to put your actual cell phone number, because you're not going to know if it's a spam call or if it's actually a caller from one of your direct mail pieces. And you're either going to totally ignore it because you think it's a spam caller, or you're going to suck up all your time answering a million spam calls.
Yeah.
Right. And so the free way is to, beginner way is go get Google Voice. But if you've got a few dollars, I would recommend even getting like a, what is it, Call Tools, or
Call Rail,
like one of those $20 an hour
things where you can just get a phone number specifically for marketing and it tracks how many texts and phone calls you've gotten?
That's what we do. We use, I think it's CallRail.
Now here's another
tip.
tip.
It tells you, then it tells you how many calls came in.
Yes.
It announces the call. Like
Yes.
you answer and it says call from postcard.
Yes.
Bam.
And if you've sent out a lot of direct mail and you haven't gotten any calls, which has happened,
yeah, sure.
Make sure your Call Tools CallRail account is not expired.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, that would be bad. Or make sure it's forwarded to the right phone number.
It's got to be forwarded to the right phone number.
Yeah.
But in my case, I don't know how one of my credit cards expired or something.
Have voicemail.
Yeah.
Like, don't have a bland inbox. Like, let them know that they reached the correct person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's a good possibility you're not going to be able to answer every phone call that comes in.
Yeah.
Either you're on the phone with another person.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. You're in something.
Yes.
But for them to know, they dialed the number. Hey, this is Ryan at Heritage Home Investments. Sorry I missed your call. Leave me a voicemail. I will call you back.
Yeah.
Like, them hearing that changes everything versus just going to
Totally.
This number is not available.
Something that everyone needs to know about as well is for $49 a month, there is a service called Call Porter that answers your phone. And it's perfect for somebody who's like just getting into it or just dabbling or is like doing a lower volume like I am right now.
Sure.
Is because I'm waiting to sell my primary house. I want to get the proceeds of that. And then I want to go do some more marketing.
Right.
But in the meantime, I do have a little bit of marketing going out, but $49 a month, they answer it. You know, they're trained to know what to say and what information to collect.
Right.
And then you get like an email with all the info.
Right.
Even a recording of the call, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
another option. It's pretty cheap. That's good for somebody who's just kind of starting out.
Right. Well, I think it could be good for people who are doing volume too.
They have more advanced plans.
Right.
Yeah. But the 49 is like, oh, that like makes sense. $49 to actually have it answered by a person.
I don't want to play devil's advocate, so don't take it like that. But a lot of people, like what I've noticed, people will call and they'll be like, can I talk to Ryan? Well, sometimes like that call's routed to people on my team.
Mm-hmm.
The postcards say Ryan and Meg. So they'll call and be like, can I talk to Ryan? Well, this is Sadie or this is Caleb or this is Max, whoever is answering the call. Well, we want to talk to Ryan. So like be prepared for that. Like people are going to, when they see you, and here's another thing too, I've learned. Putting a picture of yourself on the postcard is so effective. Like, I know it's uncomfortable. I don't know. I think it's the idea of seeing you. Like, they see you as a real person and not just a computer system that's just sending out a bunch of mail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on ours, it's our family photo. Like, the photo that we use on our Christmas card goes on our postcards. So every time I send out, it's like you could collect the postcards from over the year and you can see how my children have grown or how I grew a beard or hopefully I'm not gaining weight. But if I were gaining weight, you'd see that transition. Or if I'm getting better and, you know, I'm at the gym and I'm getting muscle mass like today.
Like we were this morning.
Yeah.
So there's one thing left, in my opinion, that's really critical for somebody to understand about direct mail.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of different options, like letters, postcards, and I'm not really sure it matters. We could talk about that. I'd like to hear your opinion. But I think what really matters, as long as you've got all the basic elements, is making sure that you send enough. And we started to touch on that when we said you miss out on 85% of your deals if you only send one. We've got another statistic, too, that you're missing out on at least 50% of your deals if you only send 3.
Right.
And I've been reading a marketing book and it's like, you need 12 touch points. I've been Googling online about sales advice and it says you need 12 touch points and everything is like 10 or above touch points.
Right.
So I've got to believe that you've got to do that with direct mail as well.
Yeah. No, I agree.
What's your
100%.
opinion on that? What do you do that?
I agree. Like the touch points for us have evolved. So it's not just a postcard anymore. Like when you start sending postcards, we have to talk about the return mail.
Okay.
Like, because you send out postcards and there's a good possibility you're going to get a bunch of mail back. Like, this didn't make it. This was not the right address or undeliverable, whatever the case. So what do you do with all those? So the touch points for us, the reason that there's multiple touch points is because we sent out those postcards. We didn't get a response from them, but also some of them came back and I'm like, well, how do we reach those people? Well, we got to have a different touch point, whether that's a phone call or a text or even email. You can find people's email addresses too, but having multiple layers of, okay, the postcards went out. We didn't get anything from that campaign. We sent them 9 postcards, whatever the case may be. Now let's put them in and let's start calling on that list and keep the list small. And like, I know I'm probably like super old school on this thing, but this is what's working for me. And that's, if it's working for me, it'll work for somebody else, I believe. So I've found that cold calling in mass quantity is ineffective versus cold calling on a small list one at a time. I've had a higher connection rate. I've had more success in getting a hold of them, just dialing it one at a time, pulling one skip trace at a time from a postcard. So we'll grab the return mail. I'll look up the one that came back. I'll skip trace that person and call it. And we just do that. That is another touch point for us. But then if there's no success in that, okay, let's try text. If there's no success in that, let's call or let's hit email. So we have multiple layers of, if this failed, go here. If this failed, go here. And if this failed, go there. But I think that both text and call, like, maybe once you're scaled, then you can look at doing just massive lists of cold calling where you're just dialing 100 numbers all at once.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just dial one at a time.
Yeah.
And get that one out of the way.
Yeah.
Notate what happened on the call. You left a voicemail or it was a note. It was non-connection or bad number or whatever. And then move on to the next one. Like keeping it simple to me is like the most important, especially at the beginning level. When we first started, all I had was direct mail. And I'm like, what do I do with the direct mail? So I'm just sending the postcards. Well, at first, I hate to admit this, but at first I was just throwing those return postcards away. I'd get them and then I'm like, I don't need these.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, but it's those who are not maybe having a lot of success.
Right.
And for that reason, when you go the extra step to get in contact with them, that just helps you cut through the noise and actually respond to somebody who's really hard to get in touch with for other people.
Yeah. Luckily, I was able to track down how many of them were returned to sender. And so I could actually pull that list of all the ones that I have thrown away.
Yeah.
And I could still rework those.
Yeah.
But like, that doesn't mean it's, just because it was returned to sender does not mean it's a dead deal. It's returned to sender, and it means find another way. That's all it is. Find another way.
The return mail is gold.
Yeah, dude.
Make sure that you utilize it.
I've said before, if your average assignment fee is $5,000 and you have, I don't have a stack, but if you have a stack of return postcards, let's say there's 1,000 of them in there. That's 1,000 opportunities to get $5,000. I think, like, dude, I've taken worse chances at less money. Why not just keep, those are possibilities. The world is full of them. So just run that, go through that second touch point, go through that third touch point, exhaust all effort of trying to find that. Because it really doesn't take, if you're wanting to make a living out of this kind of thing, then work it. Find another way to get a hold of these people. So as much as I love direct mail, I think that's the number one place to start is direct mail, but then having a plan for what happens after, because it's not done. You're not done.
Right.
I sent 9 postcards. I didn't get anything. Well, I've sent 3 and I didn't get anything. So I'm just done. No, you're not. Like, you got to be relentless on this. You have to go another avenue. You have to go whatever avenue it is that's worth or that is effective in getting their attention. So we've done sending out different color postcards. We've sent out different size. I was bound and determined to send the biggest postcard in my area.
How big did you go?
Dude, I think I got it was like the full size sheet of paper. And I sent those out. And the return mail would not fit in my P.O. box. I would go in there and they're like, we have a whole bunch of these in the back that don't fit. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think through that. But I was like, I'm going to be seen. I'm going to be the postcard that gets seen. Out of I don't even know that how many, and we do have competition on our market. I don't know how many of them are sending out similar postcards, but if multiple people are sending postcards, then be creative enough to go and do something else and be bold. Like send the biggest one. You don't have to do that every postcard, but for one campaign, make it a big postcard, an obnoxious big postcard with your information on it. It'll work. It will work.
So this is reminding me when I was looking for my first deal, there was a house that was boarded up and clearly had been boarded up for quite a while right by where I lived. I thought, I've just realized boarded up houses can be really valuable.
Right.
And now I see this house. It's right by my house. I was like, that's my house.
Right.
I earned that house because I see it.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to send a piece of mail to it, to the owner.
Yeah.
You know, it's always important to send it to the owner.
Oh, yeah.
Not the boarded up house because somebody's not going to get it. If the owner lives somewhere else, which the county records will say,
yep.
Every county record's public. You can go look up who owns what property and where they live. So you want your mail to be going to the owner. And I would send him a postcard every month. And I would just obsess over that house. Like, when's he going to call me? When's he going to call me? When's he going to call me? And I just went back there a couple of months ago. And that was 7 years ago.
Wow.
Because this was in 2016.
Wow.
The house is still boarded up.
Yeah.
And I even heard from the neighbor that he comes once a month and does a little bit here, a little bit there on the house. Like he's going in slow turtle mode.
Right.
And I'm so thankful I didn't just obsess about the house. I'm so happy I decided to figure out, well, let me go find some more rundown houses and expand the number of people that I'm talking to.
Right.
So when it comes to direct mail, it certainly depends on your list, but people need to understand that it is a numbers game.
Oh,
you need to be sending mail to more than just one house.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
how do you handle the numbers? I'll say this, driving for dollars, we typically say you need to find. I was
just about to ask this question.
In a Midwest market,
yeah,
you need to add at least 300 rundown houses.
Yep.
And you need to send mail to them at least 3 times each. And remember the stats, probably 12, but at least 3 because we're just trying to get baby steps taken here.
Baby steps started. Yeah. So,
and if you're in a more expensive market, you may need to find more houses.
Yeah.
So if the price point's higher, like in Los Angeles, 1,500 houses.
Wow.
If you're in Atlanta, where it's between LA and Indianapolis, 900 houses.
Right.
So there's a sliding scale depending on the price point of the average home in your market that when you're driving for dollars. Now, other lists might be different. They certainly are. You need to have more houses if you're buying a list.
Yeah, this is all awesome for me because I'm in the Midwest. So for me, it's been 250 to 300 properties. Originally, we were just like, that's per month. Let's add that many leads per month. Now it's, we're sometimes adding that many per week.
Nice.
Just
Love
because it's like, let's keep the
You're
phones
about to have
ringing.
covered St. Joe, the entire city.
Oh, we've covered it 3 or 4 times.
You've covered it.
Yeah.
Why
easy.
do you still drive for dollars then?
Because things change. That's what's crazy about even any market, really. But like you sent it out, and one of my sales guys literally brought this up to me. It was kind of like a shameful admission because he's like, "Hey, I see this is here as a lead, but it hasn't been mailed for 2 years." And I'm like, "Yeah, we should probably mail it again."
Yeah.
Because he's identifying 2 years later that the house is still there, still distressed, and nothing has been done.
Got it.
But for me, like, we identify I don't know how this happens. It's almost sad. But even if we drive every single month, there are still properties that we see. And your identifiers change. Like, originally it was like tall grass, boarded windows, stuffed mailboxes. Now I see tall-ish grass. You know, the lights, front porch lights are never on. Drive at night sometime. Like, look at all the dark houses. Like, that's going to tell you some stuff too. You know, you can add those leads at night. You can't get your picture, but if your app is creative enough, it'll have Google Pics. So you'll still be able to tell, like, that house is, maybe they're just not home, but you don't know. Like, the things that you don't know, it's like it's a chance. And even the houses, we've done some houses that they don't look like incredibly distressed. It's like, okay, the roof looks like a It's a 3-tab roof instead of an architectural type shingle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's definitely old.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Very rarely, you still see some people that use 3-tab shingles.
Mm-hmm.
3-tab shingles, and we're
that's
going,
where all the lines line up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're
it's
all
3
evenly lined up.
specific tabs of shingle versus architectural looks like old cedar style shingles. I know this is getting way deep for this, but the distress, if it looks like an old roof, if it looks faded and weather worn, that's a symptom. The rest of the house could look immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
But if the roof of the house looks weather worn or old, that's a symptom. Send them a postcard. Maybe they want to sell because it's like, man, a roof is going to cost me 20 grand. I ain't got 20 grand. And they're sitting there praying and wishing for a hailstorm that's never going to come. But maybe you can offer a solution that gets them out of that predicament, solves the problem of I don't have the 20 grand to fix the house, but maybe they have equity in it. And maybe you buying the house helps them get into a better situation. I know this is just going way off course.
Well, I think we should do a whole episode on what you should look for because there's a lot of niche little things that people don't see that are not standard, right? Rundown could mean a lot of things. Yeah. And the roof is a really good tip that we could expand upon, I think, in the next episode.
Yeah, I agree. And, like if you didn't catch the first episode, we talked about how we got started in this. And I know that we could elaborate more into that, but like this whole process is kind of designed on helping you get into it and what you need to do to get into it. Right. So I definitely think that I agree with you. Let's talk about like points of distress and what to look for, because that will help you then identify when you go out and you look for your 250 to 300 houses, what are you going to look for? How are you going to find that?
Well, hey, Ryan, you know what I'm looking forward to in the next episode?
A joke.
Your joke. Yeah.
I could tell it right now.
No, I think we should hold off.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time. So here's 5 things we just covered. We talked about, hey, I want to buy your house. Put that on your postcard.
Hey, would you sell your house?
Hey, yes. I'm very interested in buying your house. If you're interested in a cash offer, please contact me. Yeah. Call or text me.
Call me.
And that was the second thing, is give them multiple options to call you or text you or email you or go to your website or maybe your fax number if you're into that. That's just a joke. What's the third thing that we talked about? Doesn't really matter what your mail piece is, right? Just focus on whatever you can execute on. 4 was add a picture, could be of the house, could be of your face. It's not necessary, but it's definitely a tip. And send more than one piece would be a 5th thing that we talked about.
There is so much good. Like I can sit back and say, not to be boastful, but there's a lot of good information. For beginners, like this is the content that I didn't have availability to. I didn't see this kind of stuff. It was literally just following the 30-day wholesaling challenge, which is do this, do this, do this, do this. And I was just running through it trying to get my first deal. Yeah. But having this level of breakdown, sometimes people just need it broken down. And that's what we want to try to help.
Yeah. And I really would encourage not to need to learn more about direct mail.
Right.
What matters is that you send it and how much you send it.
Right.
And that you answer their phone calls.
Yep. 100%.
And so it doesn't really matter any of this other like nuance until you're really doing a lot of deals or really doing a lot of volume. What's more important is that you're able to take action and learn rather than wonder about if you've done it absolutely perfectly.
Yep. Agreed.
So you have everything you need to know to send direct mail to homeowners.
Right. Exactly. Let's save the rest for another episode.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.